Every night at the same time, the river broke the silence of the village. It wasn't the sound of the current. It was a name, low, prolonged, as if coming from underwater. Clara had been listening since she was a child, but she never responded. Until the dreams began. Entire nights trapped in dark waters, feeling something huge move beneath her, and two amber eyes watching her from the shore. The name became clearer. The call, more urgent, and she knew, if she didn't answer, something would come. For her. That morning, he couldn't take it anymore. He went to the river, and for the first time, he spoke back. The water trembled. A silhouette emerged. Wolf eyes, human smiles. I knew you would listen to me. If you think you're alone when the world falls asleep, you're wrong. Like this video, leave your comment saying if you would answer the call and sign up now. Some names should not be said. The morning was colder than usual. The wind that passed over the river didn't just bring humidity. It brought a shiver that seemed to run up the spine and stop at the back of the neck. Clara was awake. As always, I waited for the moment when the whispering began. And he came. Low, dragging, almost blending in with the sound of water. But she knew it was different. It was a name. The same name he had heard for years, always with the same cadence, always coming from the depths. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the wind. But as she grew older, she realized that that sound said something only to her. In the last few weeks, the dreams had changed. It wasn't just the river anymore. Now there was eyes, amber eyes that glowed in the dark, watching her from somewhere on the shore, motionless, as if waiting for her answer. And behind them, a silhouette, almost human, with broad shoulders, pale skin, and a smile that belonged to no face she knew. The old people of the village spoke little about the river, and when they spoke, their voices carried a caution, as if mispronouncing the words might wake something. Once, Clara tried to ask about the name she heard. The silence that followed the question was more frightening than any answer. That morning, she got up without thinking. Her bare feet touched the cold floor. The door creaked, and the night swallowed her. The path to the river was short, but in that darkness it seemed to stretch on forever. The moon was covered, and mist crept across the rocks. And there he was, the river, too calm, like a mirror, that held something underneath. The whisper came again, sharper, closer, almost as if the voice was behind her, and not in the water. Clara took a deep breath. His heart was beating like a drum. And then he replied, said the name. The water trembled, gentle waves formed in the center, and slowly a figure began to emerge. First, the broad shoulders, then the pale face, and lastly, the eyes. Wolf eyes. The creature smiled. I knew you would listen to me. And at that moment, Clara felt something around her ankles. The current, gentle, was stronger. The next morning, the river looked the same as always. But Clara didn't. The touch of water on her ankles was still there, as if something had stuck to her skin. And even far from the shore, she heard, not the whisper, but the slow breathing of something that accompanied her. He tried to tell his mother, but the words died before they could come out. Deep down, I knew that talking about it would be crossing another line that I couldn't undo. At the market, he noticed strange looks. The old woman, always sitting in the shadow of the mansion, clutched the necklace to her chest as Clara passed. A man who rarely spoke muttered something. The river chose again. Those words haunted her for the rest of the day. What did it mean, again? At night, she returned alone to the riverbank, but not to answer. I wanted to observe, to understand. The moon was high, reflecting on the calm surface. For a moment, he thought he saw his own reflection. But something was wrong. The face was hers, but the eyes were amber. Behind, in the distortion of the water, a dark figure moved. Then, from the opposite shore, something flashed. Two golden dots standing in the darkness. Eyes of wolves. Clara didn't blink, and neither does the animal. But there was something strange. It didn't feel like a threat. It looked like... Wait. As if he knew she was close to remembering something she never experienced. A twig snapped behind her. He turned around quickly, but there was no one there. When he looked back, the wolf was gone. Where he had been, something was moving in the water. A voice, clearer than ever, called her real name, not Clara, but a name she had never heard before, and it was at that moment that he felt it. That name belonged to her, but not her now. The other version, the one who had somehow been there before. Maybe in the river, maybe in the body of something that was still trapped down there. In the silence, he understood that the wolf was not just a presence, was the guardian of the limit, and that if he crossed to where she was, whatever was trapped in the depths would come with him. And somehow, she felt like she had already let that happen once. Or maybe it wasn't just water. On the fifth day, the whisper no longer came from under the water, came from inside her. Clara tried to occupy her mind. She swept the floor, lit the stove, listened to the small talk at the market. Nothing worked. The name throbbed in her chest, as if each heartbeat were a syllable. As dusk fell, the village elder stopped her by the arm. Her fingers were cold. "Don't say it out loud, or he'll hear it better." "Who?" Clara ventured. The old woman just stared at the river in the distance. "What we call when we don't have the courage to name it." That night, the wind didn't move the leaves. The moon, round, looked like an over-open eye. Clara walked to the bank and saw claw marks in the mud, not animal marks, but deep, organized as written. He approached. The lines formed the same name that was chasing her. As she touched, the earth vibrated. Cold crept up her arms. On the other side, two amber glows lit up. The wolf. This time he didn't stand still. He emerged from the trees, slow, silent, approaching until Clara could hear his breathing. He hadn't growled. He had waited. Her eyes said this was a border, and that she had crossed it before. The river murmured. The name came more clearly, accompanied by a sentence that tore her apart. "You left me." Clara staggered. Memories that didn't belong to her leaped like fish to the surface, hands held on the shore, promises spoken in the moonlight, a swim, bubbles, silence. And the pale face that had emerged days before with the human smile and the wolf's eyes. A pact, a mistake. The current began to swirl without wind. In the center, a dark pool of water formed, like a bottomless pit. The wolf stepped aside, clearing a path, like a guardian. Inviting her to choose, Clara felt her ankles give way, the mud pulling like fingers. The name rang out once more, this time from back of her throat, without her wanting to. Try. The surface broke. The figure emerged waist deep. There were markings around its neck, like seaweed transformed into chains. It extended its hand, meek, as if asking for forgiveness or offering salvation. The wolf's amber eyes reflected in that face. The same shine, the same old hunger. And for an instant, Clara saw impossible. The wolf and the man moving together as a reflex and the body trying to align itself. "All that's left is for you to say my full name," the figure whispered. Clara opened her mouth. The wolf raised its head and let out a short, dry howl like a no-said. The ghost memories pressed in, of a young woman just like her, another night, another moon, the same river. The promise that kept one at the bottom to spare the other on the margin. Exchange, scale, price. The whirlpool grew, the water touched his knees, rose to his thighs, and the voice, his, hers, now came from all sides. Say it. Finish it. Bring me back. Clara closed her eyes. She tried to hear what wasn't water, what wasn't fear. She heard that of the wolf, synchronized with his. He breathed in. When he spoke, he didn't say the full name, broke it in half. The surface trembled like a mirror cracking. The figure froze in surprise. The wolf took a half step forward between Clara and the river, leaning forward as if guarding a door with his body. The whirlpool hesitated, furious. The seaweed currents pulled harder, trying to compensate for the word missing. Clara opened her eyes and whispered firmly, "You're not just him, and I'm not just me." On the opposite bank, something answered. Another pair of amber eyes lit up in the darkness, identical, distant, as if there had been two guardians, or two halves waiting for the right choice. The water rose another hand's breadth. The wolf growled low. No threat, alert. And the fifth day ended. The very second Clara gave one step forward, not to fall, but to decide. And the river, impatient, decided not to wait. The sixth day did not dawn. The fog had covered the village since before sunrise, swallowing the houses, the trees, and even the sounds of things. Clara didn't know if she was awake or trapped in the same dream that kept repeating itself. When he reached the river, he found the wolf already waiting. He wasn't on the opposite bank this time. He was on the same side as her, just a few steps away, his body tense, his gaze fixed on the water. His howl, low and hoarse, sounded more like a warning than a call. The surface of the river was so smooth it looked like glass. And when Clara looked, she didn't see the reflection she expected. It saw two clear ones, one with her own brown eyes, another with amber eyes, pale skin, and a smile that wasn't hers. The two were connected by a dark current that descended to the bottom. The amber-eyed reflection spoke. "First, you're not the first, and you shouldn't be the last." Memories came back with the force of a blow, images of women identical to her, in different eras, all called by the river, all looking at the same figure and making the same choice. Some fell, others fled, but none of them broke the cycle. The man's figure emerged again, water running down the chains around his neck. He held out his hand as before, but this time not for Clara, for the Lobo. And then the plot twist was revealed. The wolf was not the guardian. It was the last prisoner who tried to escape and failed. His soul was split in two, one part trapped deep within, the other wandering in beast form to lure the next victim. Clara understood. If he accepted the hand, he would not only free the man from the river, but would merge the wolf and him again. And she would take the place left, chained in the darkness. The wind blew, breaking the surface of the water. The reflection distorted, the two Claras blended. Together. And the voice came from all sides. "Someone has to stay, or the river will never be silent." The wolf came closer, rubbing his flank against her leg, as if urging her to choose right. But in his amber eyes, there was also a silent plea to be freed. Clara took a deep breath. He reached out his hand, but not to the man, to the wolf. The water exploded into foam and screamed. Chains broke. The river trembled. And in an instant, the beast and the man merged into one, free. Only then Clara realized that her feet were knee-deep in water, and something cold was beginning to wrap around her ankles. The river calm seemed to smile, and for the first time, the name he murmured was hers. The water rose quickly, cold as old iron. Clara tried to back away, but the ground beneath her feet was no longer mud. It was like smooth stone, impossible to escape. Her name kept being whispered, growing clearer, growing more urgent. The man and the wolf, now united, stood on the shore. They didn't help her. They couldn't. The pact required balance. For one to leave, the other had to stay. "Don't fight it. The river will accept you faster." The voice was not cruel. She resigned. As someone who has said this before, many times. Streams of water rose up Clara's body, past her waist, over her shoulders. Each touch brought images, women, men, children, all called by the river on moonless nights, all replacing the previous one. A cycle so old that the river itself no longer remembered when it began. She looked at the shore one last time. The werewolf's amber eyes stared at her. There was no guilt. There was no victory, just the certainty that he would carry his freedom for a short time, until the call began again for another. The water covered his mouth. The sound of the world has disappeared. Everything went silent. In the background, there was no complete darkness. There were faint lights like fireflies trapped under glass, and between them, faces. Everyone was still, murmuring names, not their own, but those of the next people who would take their place. Clara felt the chains tighten around her neck, as if the river were marking her. And then, a strange feeling. She was smiling too. On the surface, the mist began to disperse. The wolfman took a deep breath of fresh air, turned, and walked into the forest. The river was calm again. That night, long after the village fell asleep, someone woke up. She was a 10-year-old girl who lived in the house closest to the shore. He went to the window, and he swore he heard the river whisper a name. It wasn't hers, but she promised herself that if she ever did, would answer. If you've ever felt something invisible calling you when the world is silent, you're already part of that story. Like this video, comment if you would have the courage to respond to Rio, and subscribe now. Some callings do not choose by chance. Maybe the next one will be yours.